Hey, Seaworthy community, it's Dr. Rob, and I'm so blown away just to get to share with you that this chapter has been a great living and learning journey with becoming a better functional medicine doctor and getting to interview and spend time with all these great folks on summits and here on the Field Notes podcast. And this chapter is transitioning to an educational content para platforms, our YouTube channel and Instagram, and a bunch of vibrant stuff's going to happen there, including drone footage, a new series called Lab Rat Number One. I've always joked Lab Rat Number One is in the maze. That's going to be me. You're going to get to see part of my health journey. Going to get introduced to our functional medicine nurse, Rebecca Smith, on my team and learn about functional medicine nursing and what that has to offer. So this is a best of that you'll get to see my very first interview with a chalkboard behind me and some maybe a little bit scrappy audio and video, but worth the listen for the content. You'll get to see me with the father of functional medicine twice. The first time with a sheet behind me during the pandemic and my forehead all blown out without any pixels there because I had bought some lighting that didn't work, and hopefully some pretty state-of-the-art stuff by the end. So please enjoy this best of series. Please subscribe on our YouTube channel and Seaworthy Instagram. And as we get toward the end of the year, we'll keep rolling with you there. And if you've been relying on prompts to be part of the Seaworthy community via the email list, that's going to be wrapping up at the end of the year. So please be tucked in the new setting by the time that arrives. Thanks for making this possible, everyone. Can't wait to meet you on the next step.
Welcome to the Field Notes podcast, presented by Seaworthy Functional Medicine. Seaworthy exists to help you overcome your complex health challenges so you can be fully vital. Now, here's your host, Dr. Rob Downey.
My thanks to Dr. Shiroko Sokitch for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So it's a good morning, isn't it? Because it's 10 in California.
It is, yes. What time is it where you are?
Just an hour earlier. Alaska's just a titch before the
Got it. So 9 a.m.
Pacific coast. So
yeah.
So these interviews have less temporal dislocation than the East Coast. Well, I want to make sure and introduce you to folks that listen to this, and please add anything if I don't get important details into this. Your credentials are really interesting and impressive in that you're an MD and a licensed acupuncturist, and you have general surgical training, spent I believe 10 years in the ER, and then from 1993 onward, you've had the Heart to Heart Medical Center in Santa Rosa, California. And you've got a book that came out a few years ago about tackling really difficult problems in clinical care, the importance of the heart in clinical care. And with what I've learned about you so far, that is one of the most profound areas of your insight and how you help people is the heart and the role of love in healing. Is that accurate, Dr. Sokitch?
It is, yes.
Is there anything I should add before we segue into asking you some questions? Anything more people should know about you? Or
well, I'm also an Institute of Functional Medicine certified practitioner. And my book is called Healing When It Seems Impossible, 7 Keys to Defy the Odds. And the first key is love. So
excellent.
I'm happy to talk about all of that.
Wonderful. Well, we will do exactly that then. So thank you again for giving us your time today. I've been chasing all over Homer into these improvised settings during the coronavirus challenges. And today, thankfully, I'm in an environment that is protected from some of the digital challenges of other environments. I just need to do one thing you'll see me kind of doing on the fly, which is I'll you'll just see me click on the screen from time to time, so my computer's auto shut off doesn't block us. But I wrote on the chalkboard behind me, I love functional medicine, so maybe you can see a little of that red chalk in my current improvised setting this morning.
I can see the B and F and L on both sides of your head.
Yeah. I want to make sure everybody gets lots of time to learn from you today. We do have a couple interesting parallels in our careers because I did a lot of family practice in rural Alaska. In my early years, I was north of the Arctic Circle from 2000 to 2002, delivering babies and in the ER and admitting patients. And then from 2006 onward, I got to do functional medicine. And so I was intrigued as I learned more about you to get ready for today that we've had at least one perhaps similarity in our trajectories, which was sort of being in the heart of a lot of really serious, intense illness in the conventional care setting, and then probably having the functional medicine lights come on, that functional medicine toolbox could move people forward in ways that the conventional toolbox alone couldn't. And maybe that's a good segue into letting us know how you got into how you practice today.
Long story.
Yeah. Well, whatever. Yeah. Whatever amount of time you want to take, I'm sure it's all illuminating and valuable to people that are joining us. So please don't feel a need to condense it unduly.
Okay. So originally, I decided I wanted to be a doctor when I was 5 years old. And I'm not going to tell you every year of all of those years, but promise. But when I was 5, my great-grandmother was my very best friend, and she collapsed in front of me one day. And a few days later, after she was taken to the hospital, I was told that she had died and that her heart had stopped beating. And of course, I was devastated. My mom was a single mom and my dad had disappeared from my life already. So I had already experienced loss. And it was so shocking. And I had no idea what death meant. But my mom said her heart stopped beating. So I started imagining, how could I make her heart start beating again? And somehow I figured out that a doctor had some kind of control in this sort of situation. So I decided on that day that I was going to become a doctor so I could save lives. And the first time I got to save a life was in medical school. In my 3rd year, I was in an ER rotation in the county hospital in Seattle. And a patient was brought in with multiple gunshot wounds. And we took him to the operating room and we saved his life. And literally we saved his life. Like he was, here and then here, alive again. And it was so thrilling. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to be a surgeon. And I went into surgical residency and quickly came to see that even the very best of medicine that I could practice, which in my mind at the time was surgery, like that was the pinnacle of medicine for me. And we were doing, I was in my first year and then in my 2nd year of residency, and we were doing all of these interesting things, but still we had patients that we couldn't solve what was wrong with them. We couldn't heal them. And then I kind of also hit my own sort of what I call my first midlife crisis at age 27, and came to realize that there was more to life than working, 80 hours or 90 or 100 hours a week, And so those two things sort of collided, and I took a month off from my residency. And during that time had a dream that if I stayed in surgery, I would die. And it was kind of like this banner: if you stay in surgery, you will die. Oh, so I was like, and so I was like, okay, and I wasn't happy at the time, obviously, because I had reached this sort of midlife crisis stage. And so I was like, well, what do I want to do? Where do I want to be? What is right for me? And I began asking all these questions. And somebody gave me a book called The Web That Has No Weaver about Chinese medicine. So I read this book and I fell in love. I just fell in love with the whole concept of Chinese medicine. And the whole idea is, you know, when you're made up of energy and energy travels through your body in certain patterns. And when your energy's out of balance, there are problems. So the whole idea was balance. And I was like, oh, I've got to learn what this is about. So I just started studying acupuncture. I left my residency actually at the end of my second year of that residency, went to work in the ER, and then met a guy who became my mentor, who was a respiratory therapist in my hospital, who was already an acupuncturist. And so he had that crossover Western and Chinese medicine thing already. And so he kind of became my mentor, and I went to acupuncture school and worked in the ER and sort of came up with this dream that I wanted to blend both Chinese and Western medicine to bring people the best of both worlds. Mm-hmm. So every semester in acupuncture school, I would like question, what am I doing in school? I've been in school for who knows how many years, and I'm still in school. What am I doing? But then something would happen to either a patient in the ER or to me. And the thing about Chinese medicine, this is in the 80s. So the thing about Chinese medicine is that there's a system of looking at imbalance that's different than Western medicine. And so when I had a patient who was a mystery, or where I didn't understand what was going on, and at the time functional medicine wasn't available to me, I would be able to use Chinese medicine to understand what was going on, and I could then target the testing that I wanted to do in order to figure out what was wrong with the patient. Or if it didn't fit any of the Western medicine testing available, I still had answers that I could discuss with my patient. And so that's kind of how I evolved. And then, you know, when I went into practice in 93, I moved to California at that time, and I went into practice. I started to study, you know, like it was sort of the early days of functional medicine. So I sort of started studying all of those Western medicine, sort of functional medicine elements to augment my Chinese medicine. And so it's kind of layered over the years into where I am today.
Thank you. I have to share that my mentor is an acupuncturist and also a Bastyr-trained naturopathic doctor. And she was at Bastyr 25 years ago when Jeff Bland and others and Joseph Pizzorno were sort of getting some of that rolling. And then when she mentored me in Montana, starting 14 years ago, there was this autoimmune case that we shared simply because she helped somebody in my clinic radically with food and some supplements, 50% improvement after this person had failed 3 immunomodulatory drugs and was getting recurrent bacterial infections. And I asked my to-be mentor, I said, how did you do that? And she said, functional medicine. And as we worked together over the years and I learned from her and I got training in functional medicine, which was so neat to me, as it was kind of like that phrase about how life gives you the test first and the answers later, where the functional medicine lens allowed me to understand what we were doing together at the point of care. And that's part of what I've grown to love about functional medicine, is that way that it sort of illuminates these different operating systems. Like I think of Chinese medicine acupuncture kind of like if you fish the same hole for 6,000 plus years, you're going to have a pretty good idea where the fish are. And of course, it's much more sophisticated than that, and I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but she incorporated on the fly in real time Chinese medicine, acupuncture, naturopathic medicine, functional medicine, things that I was able to offer from conventional medicine. And I found that functional medicine was sort of the unifying place where the ideas could clip together. And I have a guess when you shared a moment ago that the Chinese medicine helped you figure out labs to order. There were probably these kind of maybe mind-blowing experiences where it would turn out to be a very aha kind of moment. Patient would move forward and those intuitions would be very accurate and give the person momentum.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I love Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
I've been practicing almost 30 years, and I still love that understanding, and I believe in healing, and I love the idea of healing and the gentleness of how energy moves, and then using functional medicine allows me to sort of fine tune certain specific physiological things in order to help people reach that place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense to me too, because the body of knowledge in Chinese medicine is so vast and so important. It's an independent operating system, and so in some ways functional medicine is an adjunct, or something that clips in a modular way. I would say that's what I witnessed with my mentor, and also the Chinese medicine acupuncturist that I partner with here in Homer as well. It's a fully independent clinical operating system in its own right, with lifetimes worth to explore alone.
Yeah.
So probably people that do join us for this, one of the things that may be most interesting to them is what's the clinical science of love as a healing tool. And I think the only thing I reflected on while getting ready for the interview is that love's so fascinating because it's pivotal in spiritual experience, growth, friendship, work, and at the same time, because it's such a huge topic in human spirituality and growth, it also gets a lot of attention. It ends up with a lot of cliches too. When you work with people about how love helps them heal, how do you sort of cut through that to the heart of the heart of love,
so to speak?
Yeah.
Cut through to the heart.
Well, yeah,
Very surgical way of describing something.
Unfortunate metaphor. Yeah, how do you illuminate it without the hallmark part? Probably isn't terribly helpful, right? The cliche part, because there's a grittiness to love as a tool, or loving a friend when the chips are down. You mentioned in one of the interviews I watched with you, your friend's love of you during a dark time was pivotal in your healing. When I heard that, there's a grittiness and an authenticity to that I see in my patients' journeys when love is part of their healing. That it's very real.
Well, first of all, let's just make it really graphic. When you are in love, what do you feel like? Just that. As soon as you even imagine being in love, you start to feel light. You start to feel joy, right? Even if you're not currently, quote unquote, in love with somebody else or something, as soon as you start thinking about being in love, your body starts to feel lighter, your energy lightens up, and you feel joy. Well, if you come from that place, when you think about being healthy, or when you think about a difficult health challenge, rather than feeling betrayed by your body. So quite often when somebody isn't feeling well, or when my patients aren't feeling well, they feel betrayed. They're angry that they're sick. They're physically feeling miserable. And a lot of people aren't experiencing in-loveness every single day of their lives, right? That's a thing that isn't that easy to achieve. So the first thing is just to imagine being in love, and then to imagine putting that into yourself every single day. That doesn't come from any other place. It doesn't come from another person, honestly. So like when you're in love with another person, it's you that's generating that in-loveness. It's not the other person. That other person has their in-loveness, but that meeting of the two of you is because of the two of you, and not because that person's giving you love or you're giving that person love. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So that experience of love is generated from within your own body. And there is a hormone that's produced by your body when you're in love called oxytocin, which is sort of the counter to cortisol. And so you are able, that you can actually take oxytocin as a supplement. And I did a couple years ago when we had the big fires here in Santa Rosa a couple years ago, where a lot of my patients lost their homes, and a lot of the city lost their homes. 6,000 homes burnt down. And I did something called a disaster recovery summit, where I got all these people together to help people from the physical aspect of the trauma of escaping in the middle of the night from fires. And, that year we also had 4 hurricanes, and we had a lot of stuff that happened in our world. And a lot of people were exposed to major disasters. So I put this thing together, and for PTSD, some research has shown, post-traumatic stress disorders, research has shown that using oxytocin as a nasal spray can help reverse some of the symptoms of PTSD. So it's a physiological response using this hormone of love in order to help you overcome trauma. So there is some science. There's a lot of science, actually. There's a company called the Heart Math Institute. You might have heard of them. And they've been doing research on the power of the heart and the power of love in relation to healing for as long as I've been in practice, actually. They started around the same time that I started my practice, and have been researching, and they have devices where you can become coherent with your heart and meditate in a way that makes you coherent with your heart. But I think I answered your question. So I'm going to stop now just so see that I'm not going off track. I could talk forever.
Well, there's a lot of things that you shared that I think are going to be of terrific value to people. I think a lot of the people that check out the work that you and I do now and over the years are going to be really interested in cortisol as a stress hormone over under production, and learning that oxytocin can balance or be part of that parasympathetic nervous system tone, rest and digest, restore and replete healing picture. I think those are key moments for a lot of people that rely on you and me to team up with them and give them a compass heading. That thread then of the grittiness of healing and feeling love at the same time, I think it's paradoxical, and thankfully it isn't. That's what a lot of the people that you and I take care of experience, is that they flick the switch, and in the midst of their suffering, they move forward, and they find that metaphor that always occurs to me is love's kind of like turning the light on. There's this illumination then, and so the things that appeared really scary in the dark are still there and need to be dealt with, but they're not as intimidating. And I'm so glad that you were there for those people around you. It's a testament to the power of your toolbox that you were able to help them with that level of intensity of suffering and loss. It's good news for people that want to use your approach, that it's got a lot of weight.
Thank you. Yeah. I had to learn it myself first.
I don't remember who said it, but I believe it, that we teach best what we most need to learn, or what we're learning most intensely, perhaps. And I like what Dan Kalish taught me last year in my functional medicine business class, that functional medicine's a little different than sometimes conventional medicine can be mechanistic. So someone can pick the right drug for blood pressure, but not necessarily do the lifestyle thing for themselves that would help their blood pressure come down. But in functional medicine, we're not practicing terribly effectively if we're not learning and doing the same sorts of things we're encouraging people to do.
Yeah.
I also find there's these conversations with people are kind of like conversations with a friend or a loved one. There's an intimacy to the healing alliance that comes from an authentic place and connects to an authentic place in the other person. And I thought about that too when I watched some of your interviews and was learning about you. You're very overt about forming a loving, caring connection with people. There's a courage and an immediacy to that, I would think.
Yeah. So, I mean, in medical school and during surgical residency, one of the very first things I learned in medical school, and you might remember this too, was we're not supposed to get involved with our patients.
Mm-hmm.
And we're supposed to have a certain sort of clinical professional distance.
Mm-hmm.
And when I began studying Chinese medicine and then began sort of on my own healing, personal healing and spiritual path, which sort of paralleled my many years of doing my practice and all of that. And I learned that there's a way to be very involved with your patients and not lose your ability to see them on a clinical level.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the deeper, and I think maybe you already know this, the deeper you connect with a person, the better you are able to understand their health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Because emotions and emotional traumas and relationships in their lives, like all of those things connect to whatever's going on with them physically. So there's so many pieces to understanding a health concern, especially a difficult health concern. It's like, it's never simple. It's never just, see one symptom and put that together with a diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And both in Chinese medicine and in functional medicine, there's a perspective of like the whole system that's involved, right?
Right.
And their lifestyle, their emotional supports, their relationships, their spiritual connections, their relatives, their, like all of those things play a role in the matrix and how we view the health of a whole person. So you can't separate out those things. And I think the caring and the desire to make people better and the desire to be better is what helps me help people so well.
Mm-hmm. One very important thing I want to underscore is that it does seem to me then that there are critical boundaries that perhaps are even more important when we connect to people at that level. And I did have to, for myself, I had to learn those boundaries. I had to learn that my patients didn't need to or shouldn't hear specific aspects of my frustrations or my own journey, but at the same time, they needed to know that I've had a journey for sure, and an intense one at that. So I think I had to do some really careful parsing of that, and I feel confident now that I've got a pretty good set of internal settings around what's part of the visit and what isn't. I think I sensed as my MD toolkit came together, one challenge right out of the gate was as a third-year medical student. So many of us as a third-year medical student, that's the first time we're taking care of patients in hospital rooms. Mm. And a woman had part of her esophagus removed, and she didn't have a lot of friends and family. And so I went in there, and she was communicating on a chalkboard. And you and I both know sometimes the third-year medical students spending the most time with the patients because they've got the most time. And they're feeling that sense of, I got to get in there and get to know this person. And she was lost. She didn't have a compass heading of where to go without part of her esophagus, but she was also really lost about whether, in terms of meaning, whether that's what she wanted. And because that was 30 years ago, I'm not risking her confidentiality to discuss that case. But from then onward, it wasn't until functional medicine turned the lights on that I realized I could do both in the same setting. And it also really helped me to hear about all the science. I love David Jones' focus on lots of science about the human connection and what's happening in the visit during the therapeutic alliance and the science of that. And then the HeartMath Institute talking about the ways that when we're in the same space at the same time, people's heart rate variability even kicks into a coherent rhythm in response to the clinician being in a state of coherence and positivity. And it confirmed some of my intuitions that was what was happening in the therapeutic alliance, was being in a loving, positive space to create space for the person to explore that.
I agree.
Well, I want to make sure and look at a couple of the questions that you felt would be key, and you've addressed some of them already. Let's make sure then, because during the time of this interview, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, if somebody checks it out, they'll say, oh, this was happening during the corona pandemic. But this is a chance then for you to share with people who check out this interview now, what can you share from your expertise and what you did for people where you live a couple of years ago then for how to cope with coronavirus?
Well, I'm still trying to sort it out in terms of, because there's so much we don't know about coronavirus at this point. It's certainly making people sicker than a lot of flu symptoms that make people feel. The people who get really sick are on ventilators and they're and it's very scary. And what the press is saying is really terrifying. And I have some patients, who are elderly, who are still brave enough to come in here to see me. Although, I'm wearing masks and gloves. So a lot of things have changed just in a couple of months, masks and gloves and cleaning every surface and paper on the tables and all of these things just to make sure that everybody's safe. But there's another piece that we're forgetting when we buy into the level of fear that comes along with the possibility of getting an illness that could kill you. And that is that you have to believe in your own healing ability. And you can always bring love in, you can always bring your own healing ability in, you can always use this time of quarantine for good, rather than building your levels of fear and frustration and anxiety, which, that's always parallel. The two of those things are parallel, like in this time where things are so stressful, there's always going to be fear and anxiety and this, but there's also your body's innate ability to heal, your body's innate inner strength. And you want to build that. And so that's what I work with my patients on, is like, go there. Yes, you have all this anxiety. That's maybe not going to go away, but at the same time, you can build the strength that you have within you, the strength of your own ability to heal. And then if you need to support that strength, to build your immune system, I have something in my book, The Second Key, which is called the Triangle of Wellness, which is the nervous system, the immune system, and the hormones. And when you have strength, this is the pillar of your strength, is like your hormones, your nervous system, and your immune system. You get that in balance, you can recover from anything. And some of that is based on believing in your ability to heal and focusing on your ability to be well. And that's where I start from with my patients, and when they come in, no matter what condition they have, it could be a very dire condition, it could be something that's been going on that's mysterious for years and years. We start with the possibility of healing, because your cells know how to heal. They know how to heal. All we have to do is remind them. And so we set up the structure in order for them to heal. And that is the case with coronavirus as much as it is with anything else. And so that's what I'm trying to help people see, is this idea that within you is the power to be well, and to hold on to that.
I'm just going to pause and take a deep breath. That is, that's good stuff right now.
Yeah.
And share, would you, what reciprocates back as you help people with that internal strength? What do you hear from people? It's activating that part of them that knows that. It's awakening it. It's strengthening it.
Mm-hmm. You mean, what did they experience as a result of
it might be of interest or value to our listeners, not again any specifics that would be a particular case, but what's then is there a thread or a theme as people experience this growth with you? Anything you want to share is there a theme from your patients when they say, this is what helped me get on track? I heard that and I acted. Is it courage? Is it just taking the first step? Is it shifting belief systems? Is it just getting some of the practices rolling?
It's many things, but one of them is hope.
Yeah.
I had a new patient yesterday who has been through some very intense things, and I won't go too much into depth about it, but for her, I think it was just the idea that there is hope.
Mm-hmm.
And that she has a place where she can start, because she has many complicated health issues, and having a place where you can start. You know, because sometimes, I don't know if you've noticed this, but anxiety is this like is connected to this like fear of a pile of things that could happen in the future, right? And there's all these possible outcomes, and anytime you have something that's huge in front of you, it looks like, you know, like if you go from here to here, like it's too far. But if you go from here to here and you just cut out gluten, or you just quit eating dairy, you know, that's like one little tiny step. And then you take another little tiny step. So breaking it, first of all, breaking it down into small steps. And second of all, having this overwhelming possibility that your body knows how to heal. And to just keep tuning back into that. My body knows how to heal. To just keep bringing yourself back to that idea. Somewhere in me is the knowledge of how to heal. So where do I tap into that?
Yeah. What I'm hearing there and what I witness, what I've experienced in my own life is a two-part process, maybe the macro and the micro. The micro is those incremental steps, process, not perfection, so that freeze feeling goes away. People taking steps, me taking steps. And I think maybe that's the most important, if there's feelings of hopelessness or overwhelm, is getting in the habit of taking steps. So sometimes for me, the simplest step I'll take is as I'll breathe in, I'll say the word to myself, grateful. And then as I breathe out, I'll say the word peaceful. And just the way at the beginning of the interview you just had us think about the feeling of being in love. I just stop and get the feeling of being grateful to be in a clean, dry space, or to feel the air moving on my face, or that I'm fortunate enough to have, you know, clothing that's comfortable, to see people during the day. Just simple gratitude and a sense of peace. And I find that clips to that, what I think of as that macro part. In my patient interactions, I think it's been people kind of hearing that the science is more than diseases coming out of nowhere. They come from somewhere. They come from imbalances. They come from our genes being washed over by the environment and by our lives. And I think that gives them a sense of hope too, that there's extra dimensions of this they've sensed, but the science supports that, and what you and I witness in our practice supports that. So we're able to give them a sense of confidence that if they take steps, more can happen than is expected in the common hour. I think that's the row.
I like that. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. That's, you know, so there's the big picture. I love that you put it in that way, the big picture, and then the little steps that you take in order to get to the big picture. But the big picture itself can be overwhelming. I mean, I find that myself, you know, just getting my book done took me 5 years. So, and you know, a lot of it was evolving and understanding certain elements, and like organizing the thinking that created my practice, right? And then putting it in a way that it would make sense to people, and then make sense to myself, you know. So like all of those things, it took such a long time. But if I looked at it as like book, it was too much. So I had to break it down into little steps, just like the same thing, you know.
That probably raises two really important things we should talk about before I make sure and give you time to get to your patient here. So One is that, did you find during writing your book that part of the key is that the process, again, each step illuminates the next step, and you can't see 3 steps ahead. So it's important to have the confidence to take the steps, because maybe the way you were going to write the 7th chapter, by the time you got to the 6th chapter, it had changed your perception of the 7th chapter. So you needed to be in motion, in a dynamic state for it to come into focus. Is that what your process was like, or not so accurate?
Well, to some degree, it started out being a much different book than it ended up being, yes. And definitely as each chapter sort of evolved, the next chapter came to light. But then other things happened, you know, and then you'd have to go back and change.
Mm-hmm.
Could have taken more than 5 years.
Right. All co-emergently evolving all at once, organically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have projects like that.
And then, in let's see, I finished the book in 2018. So it was before the fires.
Yeah.
I think. I'm trying to remember. That's not that long ago. Maybe were the fires in 2017? I think the fires might have been in 2017.
Yeah.
I think the fires were in fall of 2017, and I finished the book in spring of 2018 and published it in November. So a year later.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the middle of all of this, the fires happened, and that whole idea of healing when it seems impossible got a whole nother level of what seems impossible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a whole community almost burnt to the ground. And then 2 years later, another whole community. Like, this area has been affected in a huge way by these huge disasters, right? And people lost their homes, and people lost their lives, and now we're having another disaster, you know, that's on a worldwide epic proportion, you know. And so how do you take that experience and still maintain your hope and your strength and your heart, you know? So that added a whole dimension to the book for me, was the whole community, societal connection with other people level of healing.
I'm sure it did. I'm really glad you did that. I'm looking forward to checking it out. I'd like to close then by just reminding folks that they can go find that on Amazon. I think I saw it as a Kindle or a hard copy today. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. And Audible's coming.
Okay, good.
A lot of people will not do it and read it until it comes out in Audible, which I understand.
Will that be you reading it or someone else?
I hired someone else to do it, but she matches my voice well, so
yeah,
I feel good about her.
Wonderful. And then maybe last question for today then is it must be neat then for the people you've worked with since you published the book, that as they have this incitement and enthusiasm, now they've got an operating manual they can go to and really do a deep dive before or upon working with you. Is how's that enhancing your ability to do your work, that now there's an operating manual for?
It's really good.
Yeah.
A lot of people are either reading it when they come in for their first visit, or, you know, as they get more involved with me, they go to read it. I've had some of the sweetest people come in and, you know, this is what you said in your book and I'm doing that. And that's so nice. You know, like they already have like sort of the principles of where I come from in mind. And that helps so much, because I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've been doing what I do for so long that I sometimes just take for granted that people already know some of these things. And so then I don't necessarily talk about them. So, but when they have the book, then they have, well, this is how you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. And then that kind of helps lay a foundation for how to approach the healing journey, which they might never have the time to hear from me in person.
Right. I think that's really important, that the domain you and I are working in today, recorded interviews, blogs, podcasts, books, are, I'm just coming to think that this is a mission critical part of, there's a group of us who've devoted our careers for personal and professional reasons. I think we all do it because we want everybody that can to have access to this information. We fell in love with healing as what we want to do for our work at some point. Dan Kalish certainly said that to everybody in my business class, and I believe it. And then I don't think of it as a trap. I don't like that word for it. But some of the most powerful truths are some of the simplest. So if we've deployed a particularly important strategy 100 or 1,000 times for ourselves or others, it can feel like oxygen. It can feel like putting our socks on. But for somebody for the first time, it's revelatory. So I think archiving some of this and organizing it really gives people reference tools that they come in just all lit up. They're moving already because it's a radiant concept.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And for me, functional medicine, standing on the shoulders of giants, David Jones, Mark Hyman, Jeff Bland, I mean, on and on and on and on and on. Now, a whole huge cast, you and I included, get to take these valuable things that people have shared. My friend, the Chinese medicine acupuncturist, also shared the hard lessons many had to learn in the development of Chinese medicine. Some of the therapeutics, people had to learn hard lessons with certain botanicals to learn what they were good for and what they weren't, and how to combine them. So, we're at a really fortunate point to be able to deploy powerful tools effectively and safely. I think it's an incredible place to come from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for your time today. Any last thoughts that anything that you'd like people to know that I didn't remember to ask you, Dr. Sokitch?
I really think that I want to end with what we began with, which is love. And if there's one tool that you could call on right away in your healing journey, whatever your healing journey is, if you're sheltered at home because of COVID and you're feeling anxiety about your future, or if you're dealing with some critical health issue yourself, to believe in your healing and to focus on love. And sometimes it's hard to focus on love. You may not feel like there's love in your life, or you may not feel like there's something that you can focus on that has to do with love, but pick something small. So like if only one little part of your body isn't in pain, let's say your pinky toe is not in pain, love your pinky toe. And love acts like a boomerang. So sometimes people think that love should be coming in to them, but if you put love out, it will come back to you just like a boomerang. So if you can't feel it coming in, give somebody love. If there's nobody to love, give a stranger love. Like now we can't be standing in line and pay for the Starbucks guy behind us, but find a way to give somebody love. Giving somebody love right now might be wearing a mask when you go out in public, so that that person that's opposite you doesn't get exposed to whatever it is you have, but that love is a great starting place. And so that's, where I would just say, anybody, you can always love more, and you can always give love someplace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and your wisdom. I'm excited for it to go out there via this venue and continue the work that you've devoted yourself to. And what a privilege to get to spend time with you. And you've made a big difference for me. And so I'm going to reflect on what you shared, and it's going to illuminate my day.
Oh, thank you. It's been delightful talking to you and meeting you through this venue.
Take care. Have a great day.
You too. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for the Seaworthy podcast. Seaworthy exists to help people overcome their health challenges and be fully vital. If you think we've earned it, please consider giving this podcast a like, subscribing, and giving us a 5-star rating on the platform of your choice. Thanks.